The gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 4 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, in spite of the words of the other side of the aisle, I rise in strong support of H.R. 4173, the Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2009. This legislation that is vital to making our financial institutions better capitalized, our consumers safe from predatory practices, and our economy stronger so that we can emerge from the recession that is caused by the very financial institutions that we are now fighting tooth and nail to defeat this legislation. I was proud to work with the chairman to include my amendment. Now, I understand that my parents came to this country and they didn't speak English, and so the first 5 years before they sent me to school, I spoke another language other than English. But I've had the bill thoroughly examined by those who do speak the English language and have only spoken the English language all of their life, and they cannot find the bailout fund in the bill. Now, I've worked with the chairman. I wrote the dissolution fund. I wrote the fund, and I put it in the bill. It's my amendment. Now, the ex-ante fund means that firms that could ultimately be dissolved by this fund would have to pay at least. But what my friends on the other side said, they said, and they finally used it, Mr. Chairman, in all the committee hearings, they didn't call us socialists. They waited to get to the House floor before they used the dreaded word of socialism. And what did they say? They said, the socialists, that means us, the Democrats, created a bill in which, and this is Mr. Bacchus, and he can go and check his words. He said they created a bill and they made all the institutions pay into it. And he said, that's socialism. And then when one of them fails and doesn't do something right, all of those people that paid into the fund have to pay for the wrongs of that person. Well, I guess Geico is socialist. State Farm is socialist. Allstate is socialist. Indeed, any insurance fund is socialist. Because when I drive my car and never have an accident, I pay into the insurance fund. So that maybe when some member of the other aisle gets into an accident, I pay with my funds for his mistakes. That's insurance. Now, what they won't tell you is that unlike everybody in this room who has to go and take out an insurance policy to drive a car, they want Wall Street and Goldman Sachs to be able to drive our economy into the ground without paying a cent of insurance and act recklessly. And all we're saying as Democrats is it's simple. If you want to do business in America and you threaten the economic stability of our country, then you got to pay into an insurance fund. But let me tell you, it's not the kind of insurance fund when you get into an accident and you take your car and they fix it and they give it kind of back to you new. No. In our insurance fund, you know what happens? We chop up your car into pieces and sell it. And then we pay back the fund with the pieces. That's our fund. Read the bill. It's a funeral fund. You guys love to talk about the death when it came to health care insurance. Why don't you talk about our death panels now? Oh, you don't want to talk about our death panels now. Because you don't want to know why? Because yesterday they had 100 lobbyists out here in Washington, D.C. meeting with them. 100. How many of those lobbyists you think met with the other side of the aisle and said, we're here to make sure that our small farm is protected against Goldman Sachs? How many of those lobbyists you think came here and said to my friends on the other side of the aisle, tomorrow can you make sure that that bill protects my 401k? How many of those lobbyists you think they met with yesterday said, make sure it protects my home, make sure it protects my small business? I don't think any of those lobbyists came to ask my friends on the other side of the aisle. Can I have 1 minute?
Another minute.
Thank you. So let's be clear. This side of the aisle wants to make sure there are no longer situations of too big to fail. Now, if you believe that the men and women at Goldman Sachs tonight and tomorrow and into the future, when they make an economic decision, they say to themselves, well, this might harm homeowners and put them on the street. We shouldn't do that. I'm sure Goldman Sachs, they're really worried about that. Let me see. These kids might not make this economic decision. Oh, Goldman Sachs really worried about whether our kids can go to college in America. Let me see. You mean small businesses may suffer? Banks may go under if we make those decisions? I'm sure the men and women at Goldman Sachs They think every day about the poor American public and the risk they put us to. If you believe that, then you can follow my friends on the other side of the aisle and do nothing. But if you believe, as I do and many of us, that we should protect the American worker each and every day, make sure your kids go to jail, make sure there's a pension for him, make sure his home is there for him, then I say support this bill. Thank you very much.